Well, people have asked me this question for decades, sometimes in boardrooms, sometimes at shareholder meetings, often in quiet conversations after the crowd has gone home. How much is enough? And every time I hear it, I know what they're really asking isn't about a number, it's about fear, uncertainty, and the worry that no matter how much they save, it still won't feel safe. Let me start by saying this plainly. Retirement is not a math problem. It's a lifestyle problem with numbers attached to it. Most people begin with the wrong question. They ask how much money they need without first asking what kind of life they want to protect. Comfort doesn't come from a balance. It comes from alignment between your spending, your expectations, and your peace of mind. I've met people with millions who feel trapped, and people with far less who feel completely at ease. The difference wasn't intelligence or luck. It was clarity. Here's the uncomfortable truth. There is no universal retirement number. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling certainty in a world that doesn't offer it. What matters is how much your life costs you emotionally and financially. If your happiness depends on constant upgrades, exotic experiences, and keeping pace with others, no amount will ever feel sufficient. Your finish line will keep moving, and you'll keep running. But if your needs are modest and your expectations grounded, the math becomes surprisingly forgiving. I've always believed that freedom is the real goal. Not excess, freedom to wake up without obligation, freedom to say no, freedom to choose how you spend your time without asking permission from your bank account. Retirement, at its best, is simply owning your calendar. So instead of asking how much you need to stop working, ask how much you need to stop worrying. That shift changes everything. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming retirement spending will mirror their working years. It rarely does. Commuting fades away. Certain expenses shrink, others shift. Healthcare becomes more important. Time becomes more valuable. But here's the part many overlook. When you stop chasing, your desires often quiet down. You don't need to impress coworkers when you no longer have coworkers. You don't need status symbols when you're not competing for status. Contentment is cheaper than people think. Another mistake is treating retirement as a single moment instead of a long season. It's not a light switch. It's a gradual transition. Markets rise and fall. Costs change. Life surprises you, sometimes kindly, sometimes not. That's why flexibility matters more than precision. I've never trusted plans that only work if everything goes perfectly. Real comfort comes from margin. From knowing you can adapt without panic. If you design your future so tightly that a small disruption unravels it, you haven't bought security. You've bought stress. Time also plays a larger role than people realize. Starting earlier matters far more than starting bigger. Small, steady contributions compounded over decades will quietly outperform heroic efforts made late out of urgency. Money likes time. It distrusts impatience. And patience, once again, shows up as the most underrated asset in the room. People also underestimate how much control they already have. You may not control markets, you may not control inflation, but you do control lifestyle inflation. You control spending habits. You control whether every raise becomes a larger obligation or a larger cushion. Every dollar you don't need today becomes a vote for freedom tomorrow. Now, let me address the emotional side because this is where the real answer lives. Enough is the point where money stops being the main character in your thoughts. When you no longer check balances out of anxiety. When market headlines don't hijack your mood. When your sense of safety isn't shaken by every fluctuation. Enough is quiet. If your retirement plan requires constant monitoring, constant adjustment, and constant reassurance, it will never feel comfortable, no matter the size. I've always lived with the idea that you should build a life that can withstand boredom. Because retirement, when done well, has plenty of it, and boredom is only painful when you're uncomfortable with yourself. Comfort comes from knowing who you are without your job title. It also comes from humility, accepting that you don't need to win at money. You just need to not lose badly. Avoiding catastrophic mistakes matters more than chasing exceptional outcomes. That's true in investing, and it's true in retirement planning. People blow up their future by reaching too far, too late, with too much confidence. They confuse optimism with safety. They treat averages as guarantees. There are no guarantees, only probabilities. And the best plans respect that. If you can cover your basic needs, protect against major risks, and leave room for joy, You're far closer than you think. Retirement isn't about abundance, it's about sufficiency. And sufficiency looks different when your days are your own. So how much is enough? Enough is when your expenses are smaller than your patience. Enough is when your lifestyle doesn't depend on perfect outcomes. Enough is when your money supports your life instead of directing it. That number won't be the same for everyone, and it doesn't need to be impressive. It just needs to be honest. I've seen people postpone happiness chasing a bigger cushion they never truly needed. I've also seen people rush into retirement without respecting uncertainty. Both mistakes come from the same place: fear dressed up as logic. The goal isn't to retire early or late. The goal is to retire calmly, to trust that you've prepared reasonably, lived intentionally, and left yourself room to adjust. If you do that, you may find something surprising. You already have more than you thought.